Welcome to Learning English, a daily 30-minute program from the Voice of America. I'm Pete Musto.
And I'm Dorothy Gundy. This program is aimed at English learners, so we speak a little slower and we use words and phrases especially written for people learning English.
Today on the program, you will hear the English expression teaching program Words and Their Stories with Ana Mateo. Later, Steve Ember brings us one part in an ongoing series about America's history. But first, the Higher Education Report.
Redding, California is a city with few choices for students interested in higher education. For generations, the local economy has been mostly based on sales of natural resources, such as minerals and wood from the forests of Northern California. Jobs in these industries traditionally did not require a college education, and they long offered enough pay to support a family, says Buffy Tanner. Tanner is the director of several programs at Shasta College, a local two-year college. She describes Shasta as the only public higher education institution serving the surrounding area. We don't really have a college-going culture in our area, Tanner tells VOA. Even with the shift in our economic base, there's still lots of families that don't quite understand, why would you go to college? Why wouldn't you just go to work directly out of high school?
Over the past 30 years, many local businesses dealing with natural resources have closed, says Tanner. Now, most of the local job openings are in fields like healthcare and education, which do require some kind of college degree. The issue is that because people in Redding have failed to see the value of higher education, few of them have a degree. In fact, 3 years ago, Shasta found that about 31% of area adults over age 25 had attended college without completing their study programs. So, Tanner says, Shasta College decided it needed to do more to help former students return to college and finally earn a degree. In 2016, Shasta launched 2 programs, which she now leads. They are called Accelerated College Education, or ACE, and the Bachelor's Through Online and Local Degrees, also known as BOLD. The school designed each program with the needs of returning college students in mind, Tanner says. Such students are usually older than other students and have full-time jobs. And they are often earning money to support families, meaning they have lots of responsibilities in addition to work and school. That is why the ACE program offers a path to an associate's degree through night school as well as internet-based classes. This program's study periods can be completed in just 8 weeks, instead of the normal 3 to 4 month college term. As there are no nearby public 4-year institutions, BOLD partners Shasta's returning students with public colleges and universities in other areas. It helps them earn a bachelor's degree through classes in Redding and online at a reduced cost.
ACE also places returning students in groups that work together as they progress through the program. And BOLD offers special classes with Shasta that help students progress through the higher education system and find jobs after completion. So the students have better support than they might have had in the past, Tanner adds. All of these efforts brought attention to Shasta College, leading it to join a larger movement to help students earn degrees. In February, the Lumina Foundation Research Group reported on the rates of people earning college degrees in the United States. It found that almost 16% of Americans between the ages of 25 and 64 had attended college without ever earning a degree. So Lumina and several other groups teamed up with the Institute for Higher Education Policy, or IHEP, to launch a program called Degrees When Due. Julie Ajinkya is the Vice President of Applied Research at IHEP. She says her organization has created computer software that collects information on college students who have yet to earn a degree. Through the Degrees When Due program, IHEP has shared those software programs with Shasta College as well as other schools. Ajinkya says her organization plans to spend the next 3 years helping these institutions understand the data its software gathers. It will then show them how to identify and best serve the special needs of students who want to return. IHEP wants to share its resources with as many schools as possible, Ajinkya says. But first, like Shasta, the schools must recognize the reasons why students leave college and the barriers they face to returning. She says many leave because of a personal issue, like a health problem or family crisis. The main reason they have difficulty in continuing or returning to college is the rising cost of higher education. And these are circumstances that are often out of their control.
I think it's really all of our responsibility to support students in eventually completing, Ajinkya says, because we know that increasingly our job force is going to need more and more individuals who have some sort of post-secondary training. And so, as a nation, we will miss a key opportunity if we don't. Colleges and universities across the country seem interested in this initiative. Dawn Medley is a student affairs official at Wayne State University, a public 4-year institution in Detroit, Michigan. She says the Lumina Foundation reached out to the school about setting an example for how schools could help improve student graduation rates earlier this year. Together, they began examining student data and found that Wayne State had 13,000 students drop out of college without earning a degree. So Wayne State launched a program called Warrior Way Back. When students leave college before earning a degree, they still have to pay back their loans, Medley notes. Schools will not release the academic record of any student with unpaid debt. And a student often cannot attend another college without those records. This is a big problem for returning students who left because of financial reasons in the first place, she says. Warrior Way Back lets former students with some debt return to Wayne State. For every term a returning student completes, the program reduces their old debt by a third. And if they choose not to earn a bachelor's degree, they can move to a community college to use their past work toward earning an associate's degree. I'm Pete Musto.
And I'm Dorothy Gundy.
Now, the VOA Learning English program, Words and Their Stories. There are thousands of different kinds of birds. They come in many different sizes and colors. And they each make their own sound. That is a robin. Here is a nightingale. And this is the song of the canary. Canaries are active, cheerful birds, and they are known for their ability to sing. Some animal experts say they are among the best singing birds. You can even train a young canary to sing, and they can sing for hours. So if someone says that you sing like a canary, you would think that they mean you sing cheerfully all day long. But that is not what singing like a canary means, not even a little. In English, if you sing like a canary, you are reporting on someone to high-level officials, like the police. Let's say police officers question someone suspected of a crime. The officers offer the woman a deal, a lighter prison sentence, in exchange for her cooperation. Wanting to avoid jail time, she sings like a canary and provides details about the people who helped her carry out the crime. In fact, even after the police have enough evidence, she keeps on talking, telling them about other crimes. She is like a canary that cannot stop singing. In this case, you could also say that she snitched or ratted on her criminal friends. If I snitch or rat on someone, I can also simply say that I have told on them. To tell on a person is to tell someone else a bad thing they have done. So, for example, if I tell on you, I share something bad you have done with someone else. Although to tell on someone sounds a little childish. Brothers and sisters often tell on each other to their parents. Classmates can tell on each other to their teachers. Now, at this point, you might say, Anna, wait a minute. Why does English use canaries in this expression? People love canaries and keep them as pets. They are happy, harmless little birds. Well, yes, they are, but that is not the point. To say someone sang like a canary simply states what the bird naturally does, and often, it sings. The expression does not mean that the birds are bad. Also, it does not liken them to criminals. So if someone sings like a canary and rats on their friends, we would never call them a canary. But we could call them a rat. Canaries, it seems, are easier to love than rats. There is an important thing to note when using these expressions. When we use sing like a canary, most often the person doing the singing is also guilty themselves. However, if you snitch or rat on someone, you do not necessarily have to be involved in whatever it is you are snitching or ratting about. But when you sing like a canary, you usually have had a hand in the trouble. Unlike the cheerful canary, it just wants to sing. And that's Words and Their Stories. I'm Anna Mateo.
From VOA Learning English, welcome to The Making of a Nation, American History in Special English. I'm Steve Ember. In May of 1787, a group of America's early leaders met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to amend the Articles of Confederation. That document established a loose union of the 13 states. Instead, the leaders wrote a completely new constitution. They created America's system of government and recognized the rights of its citizens. Last week, we discussed the way the delegates agreed that states would be represented in the national government. There would be 2 houses in the legislature. In one house, the House of Representatives, the number of representatives from each state would depend on the state's population. In the other house, the Senate, all states would have an equal number of representatives. The agreement on representation was known as the Great Compromise. Not all the delegates in Philadelphia were pleased with it, but it saved the convention from failure. The debate on representation in the House raised an important issue. No one wanted to talk about it, but all the delegates knew they had to discuss it. The issue was slavery. There were thousands of slaves in the United States in 1787. Most of them were in southern states. But there were many slaves in the North, too. And northern ship owners made a lot of money by importing slaves from Africa. A modern-day Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas, came from a family whose ancestors included slaves. Justice Thomas says slavery made no sense in America.
How can you have a free country with slaves? We understood that. It's a contradiction. It contradicts the very founding premise of the country.
The Articles of Confederation said nothing about slavery. Each state could decide to allow it or not. Massachusetts, for example, made slavery illegal. 9 other states stopped importing new slaves. Only 3 states, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, continued to import slaves. The issue was never easy to discuss. Some of the most important men in America, including George Washington and James Madison, owned slaves. No one wanted to insult these men, yet the delegates at the convention had to make some decisions about slavery. Slavery affected laws on trade and taxes, as well as the question of representation in Congress. If the number of representatives in the House was based on a state's population, who would you count? Would you count just free people, or would you count slaves too? Akil Reed Amar, a professor of law and political science at Yale University, calls slavery the original sin of America's founders.
They inherited it, to be sure, and they worried about it, but not enough.
During the debate, some delegates argued that slaves were property and should not be counted for purposes of representation. Others argued that slaves were people and should be counted with everyone else. Gouverneur Morris of Pennsylvania made an angry speech. He denounced slavery as an evil institution. Charles Pinckney of South Carolina defended the existence of slavery in the United States. In all ages, he said, 1/2 of mankind have been slaves. George Mason of Virginia, a slave owner, wanted to free all slaves. He said Virginia attempted to do that when it was a British colony, but that the British government refused. He blamed the problem on British businessmen who made money from slavery. Other delegates rose to denounce or defend slavery, but no one at the convention had the power to rule on whether slavery was right or wrong. Everyone knew the convention would fail if they tried to write a constitution that banned slavery. The southern states would never accept it. They would refuse to be part of the United States. Rufus King of Massachusetts said, "The convention should consider slavery only as a political matter," and that was what happened. The delegates accepted several political compromises on the issue. James Wilson of Pennsylvania, for example, proposed a method of counting each state's population for purposes of representation. All white people and other free citizens would be counted as one person each. Every 5 slaves would be counted only as 3 people. This was called the 3/5 rule. The delegates accepted it. The word slave was never used in the Constitution. The document simply used the words all other persons. The 3/5 rule remained the law until the 14th Amendment to the Constitution came into effect in 1868. Alexander Hamilton said the 3/5 compromise was necessary. Without it, he said, no union could possibly have been formed. Slavery also became an issue when the delegates began discussing the powers of the national legislature. Once again, the delegates asked, are slaves people, or are they property? The answer would affect import taxes and the growth of new states. The delegates accepted several compromises on these questions too. They agreed that the Treasury could collect a tax of $10 for every imported slave. They also agreed that slaves could be imported until 1808. Then, no new slaves could be brought into the country. Until then, each state had the power to make its own decisions about slavery. After 1808, the national government would make all the decisions. Constitutional law professor Akil Reed Amar says that agreement is where the delegates went wrong.
What was the founders' biggest mistake? Not that they didn't get rid of slavery immediately. It was already a part of their world. It would have been difficult to get rid of slavery immediately. But what they didn't do is come up with a long-term plan to get rid of slavery eventually.
Debate on the Constitution continued through the summer of 1787. At the same time, some of the delegates raised an important question. Once the document was written, who would approve it? The state legislatures? The people? Or, as Gouverneur Morris proposed, one big national convention? Elbridge Gerry opposed giving that power to the people. The people, he said, have the wildest ideas of government in the world. James Madison disagreed. He believed the people must ratify their new plan of government. Madison considered the difference between a system founded on the legislatures only and one founded on the people to be the true difference between a league or treaty and a constitution. When the debate was over, the delegates agreed that the people should ratify the new constitution through conventions held in each state. Justice Clarence Thomas and law professor Akil Reed Amar have described this agreement as one of the most remarkable parts of the convention.
You think of the going to Washington and trying to get him to leave Mount Vernon, and he doesn't want to leave because he's finally back home. He'd been away over 4 years, and he didn't want to leave. And he goes to Philadelphia, and they do it. They come up with this document, 4 months. And now you have it. It's going to the Congress, and it's going to be sent to the people to
the people.
To the people to ratify.
Amazing.
Finally, the delegates had to decide how many yes votes by states would be needed to ratify the Constitution. Any changes to the Articles of Confederation needed ratification by all 13 states. The Philadelphia Convention was called only to change those articles, not to replace them. So all 13 states would have to approve. But several delegates said this would be impossible. After all, Rhode Island never sent a representative to Philadelphia. That state was sure to reject the Constitution. Also, as everyone knew, the Philadelphia Convention went far past the point of changing the Articles of Confederation. The delegates wrote a completely new plan of government. But that meant they could agree to accept ratification by fewer than 13 states. Delegates who supported a strong central government wanted to quickly put the question to a vote. How many states were needed to ratify? By the end of the day, the convention had not decided. But early the next day, the delegates voted, and the number they agreed on was 9. The convention in Philadelphia was nearing the end of its work. The delegates needed only to write out their agreements in final form and sign the document.
And that's our program for today. Listen again tomorrow to learn English through stories from around the world. I'm Pete Musto.
And I'm Dorothy Gundy.